Hi there, my name's Neil Tilley. I'm one of the Cisco education advisors working with Arizona State University on a number of innovation projects. So thank you so much for inviting us to Learning Man. And this session today is going to be essentially just giving you an input into what some of the conversations that we're having at Arizona State University around this idea of artificial intelligence in the network, right? And one of the things that it really is kind of evolved into, which is essentially helping with COVID-19 and the response that we need to safely open campus in the fall and allow all the students and faculty and staff to come back into a safe environment. And so it's a perfect example of technology being used and kind of the new future that we're all going to be living in. I wanted to immediately sort of say that we've got the Cisco and Arizona State University team on with me. They can speak at any point. I am not going to hold them to anything. We wanted this to be a campfire story type session, just to give you an insight into the innovation inside of artificial intelligence and how it's being used for good as a superpower. But I wanted to mention also that Cisco and Arizona State University have had a long relationship. As you probably know, Cisco was created inside of the university systems in the United States, but Arizona State University has a long history in both faculty, staff, research, lots and lots of different areas of collaboration, whether it be technology, teaching, or even some of the programs that we've done with entrepreneurial programs, the ability, the program that we worked with empowering youth, and also from an Arizona State point of view, working with our global problem solver program. All of these things are available through Arizona State University and Cisco's website, so please go look them out. They are great programs. We have coding programs, we have STEM programs, we have cybersecurity programs, and they're all tied to the university and Cisco's program of helping university and faculty leverage our footprint. And so the first thing I wanted to do is say, well, okay, we're going to talk about artificial intelligence, but really, the story here, if this was a comic book, the origin story is the COVID-19 situation. Obviously, one of the things that we've all been kind of pivoting on since the sort of the stay-at-home orders came out is that how do we open a campus that where the student experience and the student value and the student success comes from your ability to teach within campuses. One of the things that you probably heard about was the ability, what you're already aware of, everybody is the fact that our devices and our applications are all using analytics and data to provide extra life skills. They're giving you, they tell you where you're going, where you've been. They can look and say, well, you were looking at this product, I'll make sure that I update you on other similar products. This idea that the smart device that's sitting in your hands, which is also invisible with my background, is empowerment. Now, of course, with COVID-19, one of the things that you'll be seeing in Arizona State University is the use of apps to help us understand where everybody is, how everyone's doing from a health perspective, getting feedback and surveys and self-assessments and all these things integrated into your student environment, which is great. And that's what we've seen across the board with the universities. One of the things that we've been working on with the ASU team is how do we help with this idea of knowing, contact tracing and tracking. Now, one of the things that's really important about this is that the vendors like Google and Apple, working with the public health organization, it goes only so far. It's still reliant on the idea of a device connecting to a network and an app in the foreground doing something and keeping monitoring. And most of these contact tracing solutions require on essentially an input from a person. So it's a transmission system. It's reliant on the transmission system, and then of course things like our behavior with these devices it can feel very invasive, and also this idea of who we're working with, which existing applications are in there. that we can work with to make it better. So essentially what we started was this program was look at artificial intelligence, look at what data is coming out of the network, because that's the one constant in all of this, is that you're getting Wi-Fi, you're accessing devices on the network inside of the university buildings and facilities, and that it's a very effective environment. And now the other thing that's really key is that when we're looking at, it's not just about tracking where people may have been if they've unfortunately get diagnosed with COVID, but the fact is that we also need to look at how automated and efficient the cleaning and the disinfecting and the flow and the social distancing and the physical distancing of an environment. So this is another thing that the network is a constant. So the ability to help the campus team respond to everything that's going on effectively, efficiently, clearly, and then informing everybody about it is obviously tied to these technologies as well. So this correlates to what is the goal? The goal of Arizona State University in the fall is to open and be proactive, and to have a clean, safe environment, an environment that essentially is using all of the inputs and data and the artificial intelligence or machine reasoning that the network has itself, but apply it so that it sort of automates and protects. And there are a number of areas that we've been looking at. And we're not going to talk about them all today because we haven't got time. But the idea of continuing Arizona State University's quality of education, quality of experience, student spirit, making sure that the environment is is as similar and as traditional and familiar to you, but at the same time in the background is flexing and flexible to this new environment, where we need to be aware that there are going to be times when certain areas of the campus will need to be cleaned or closed, or there will be certain classes or groups of bodies of students and faculty that may need to move away or go to a different location because of the attempt to keep everything safe and running. And so that proactivity and also this idea of staying informed, and so that you're all totally aware of what's going on. And I'm talking about everybody, the faculty, the students, the staff, the parents, all of the third-party vendors, everybody involved in a successful Arizona State University. So technology is extremely important and to this. So there's challenges that come with that, okay? So, if we are going to look at the student experience of everybody inside of the university, that experience that students have, the student spirit, the not just the educational success, but also all of the life lessons and the community lessons that you get from being a student at ASU. These are also going to be impacted by the practicing of social distancing, the one-way flows, the way that we build and construct the campuses today. So, the data is really important, and so I've got some examples here that from just using applications, from just looking at the way you are accessing mobile apps that you whether your learning management system, whether it be your campus student app, or whether it's the map system, or all of the resources you got, we can see from that information, location. We can see how much access you're getting to, what you're looking at, what you're spending your time doing. But again, all of this is anonymized, so it's not kind of a monitoring of individuals. It's more a case of what is the consensus of the campus. Now you can tell that that's really important for ensuring that your experience is the best. So artificial intelligence is really about data being correlated, and so you can see here that when we get certain behaviorals tags, or we get certain correlated references, we can then make decisions as humans where we say, yeah, it's probably best if you stay away for 2 weeks because the likelihood that you might have been affected, okay? But we're going to continue to give you the best experience. We can give you access to your lessons, access to your resources, access to your friends and colleagues, but in 2 weeks' time, come back to class. Now that is going to be probably something that's kind of has an emotional effect on people. So when we look at artificial intelligence, we've also got to look at the emotional impact, and also we then have to trigger. And so one of the things that we're working with the Arizona State University IT team is how do we use the Wi-Fi environment, the network environment, to trigger notifications, because that's a simple thing that we can use, and that's a very simple way of using artificial intelligence and analytics to create a better experience. So one of the things that we're rolling out is this ability to look at the number of people in certain spaces. So a good example would be in one of the main buildings, when we get to a threshold of 1,000, we know that it's very likely that that building is over its COVID-19 expected social distancing rules. Okay, so we can put a very simple threshold in that says we just know there's 1,123 people inside of that building. Let's now trigger some sort of program, and that could be people, digital signage, text messages, incentives to go to the coffee shop, open up areas inside of other campuses, change schedules. I mean, there's so many things we can do, and that essentially is something that we can build in the back end, so that you as students or you as faculty are experiencing this in a very sort of natural, intuitive way. So I walk into the lobby of one of my buildings and I see a big green sign saying 73% safe. So we're at 825 visitors. Our maximum safe occupancy is 1,000. I'm good. I'm going to head to my class. I'm going to go and find a collaboration spot, a huddle space, and go work on my study. Or I'm going to go and have that one-to-one with that professor, or go sit with my researchers. And so the idea of artificial intelligence that we have already in the network being able to consider the smooth running of and safe running of the campus is extremely important to us. Now, how does that work? Okay, is that what we're essentially doing is using capture, analytical capture, at the source, at the native point. So this is using access points and network infrastructure to essentially bring in buckets of information, and then processing that in a large correlation, an application correlation center, so a data scientific location, and then of course asking it to apply certain rules, certain approaches to that data. Now we also can bring in other data. We can correlate it into so external services, etc. But in terms of density monitoring, the only real thing that we need to be able to do is to decipher how many devices are in that space and how many of them are essentially connected to a human being. Because those devices, the person moving around with 3 devices, obviously we can see a signatory of those 3 devices moving in a similar pattern, which gives us a high probability it's one person with 3 connected devices. Also, we've got a lot of white noise going on with printers, vending machines, other devices, so we have to filter out to get a good understanding. Now, again, baselining this over a period of time means we can get very much accuracy. Now, accuracy also means that down to physical location. So, we start with the idea of a building, a floor, a zone. The idea of the Hollywood movies where they go, hey, he's standing right there, I can see him, let's zoom in, that takes a lot. It's possible, but it takes a lot of investment, a lot of devices, a lot of access points. And of course, it's not something that every company and every university in the world could afford. Now, once we set the rules, we can query a lot of this information. So in the case of the screen you see here, in Menlo Park, over on the left-hand side, we can have a green sign saying everything's cool and hunky-dory. And over on the right-hand side, you can see that we've got a screen that's saying it's 100% dense. So we'd like to dissuade people from going into this area. Now, we can do that through different methods. We can do it through more digital signage. We can send text messages, Twitter, social media. We can send audio alerts. We can make lights flash. We can close doors physically. We can do so many different things. So at this point, it's really looking at Arizona State University and saying, how do you want your students. Again, from the users and the people, the participants inside of this building, how do they want to feel? Now, there might be a one-way system, so let's turn it the other way so they head out. Maybe when they come into the lobby, they change their route. Now, this is the first sort of example of using artificial intelligence. The second part is what happens when we have an anonymous student through the self-assessment, through the mobile tool, says, hey, just let you know my temperature's over the limit, I've got some of the symptoms, and I'm going to be sitting in my residence hall for the next 2 weeks. What can we use this artificial intelligence? And one of the things that we're able to do, and again, this is not intrusive and it preserves privacy, is we can essentially look at proximity. And what that means is essentially because we have such great machine learning going on inside of each of these access points, what we're able to do is pull that data out and then correlate it again with which devices are where. Now, they could be physical devices, so static devices like a printer. I went and used a printer. I went and used an IP-enabled vending machine. I touched an interactive screen during a class. Or it could be an individual. I was near these other devices that we've already discerned as an individual. And I did this over a space of 14 days, 10 days, 3 days, a day, a 4-hour window, a 30-minute window. Now, many of you are probably aware that if we correlate that to things like viral loading or proximity in terms of cleaning schedules, just the fact that we know that this device, which is retaining its anonymity, was in these locations, we can start to do things like changing the schedule of our cleaning. We can change the scheduling of our classes. We can take a whole building and say, hey, this building is going to be reducing its physical classes for the next week or two. We're still going to be running these. We're going to run at a higher social distancing rule, or we're going to increase the sort of the testing and tracking of temperature and symptoms. Whatever the response is, the idea is that we already have an extremely powerful amount of artificial intelligence inside of that environment that we're able to kind of use. Now, how do we use that, right? So how do we use that artificial intelligence to then make a difference, make this place a safe place? Now, we've already, the good news is that we've already done a lot of this stuff in Arizona State University and also in other vertical spaces like retail stores, stadiums. Arizona State University's stadium is using some of this technology with their Stadium Vision program. So again, we're not kind of reinventing the wheel. What we're doing is we're just essentially applying analytics and then using it to artificially intelligently automate certain responses. So you can see here that we've got, I can bring up a report that shows me the sort of, if I look over here, so let me give you some, maybe I should show you this a little better. So over here, you'll see what we have is a timeline that says that I was in a location for an hour and a half. There were 2 people that we discerned from the analytics that they were in this building, in the same floor, in the same area. Okay, and then down here you can see there were 5 people for this hour. There were 8 people for this this longer period, this sort of 2.5 hours, and then 3 people for 10 people. Now, all I really need to be able to do at this point is to essentially take these groups and then inform them. I mean, I could say, hey, there's a very high probability that you were in an area with a group of people that potentially had COVID-19. We'd just like you to stay stay in place for the next 2 weeks, or please go get your latest test done, and then you'll be able to come into class, right? But that's kind of a little bit more, from a contact tracing point of view, that's kind of doing what there's already stuff there to do. What's more importantly is if you look down here, is we can see the heat map of where the people are. And that allows us to do this next piece up here, which is essentially where we start to look at where was the majority of time spent. Now, those two things, those heat maps, their interaction maps, and the heat maps allows me to then immediately change where my cleaning team are, where my disinfection is being focused, where my foot flow is, where all of the things that we can then essentially ensure that your campus team and informing everybody in the university of what's going on. Okay, so that's not necessarily you know, being done right now, but what it is the ability to then tie that to the. I've got to get rid of my annotation. Hang on a sec. Let me clear my annotation because that's right. The other thing that we're able to do from that correlation point of view is that we're able to input that into room systems, into digital signage, into you know, the class scheduling software. So an example here would be the campus map, right? So I'm just using an example of maze maps, but it could be, you know, so as you look as a student or faculty look at the map in their app, they'll see that there's a green indicator or a red indicator for social distancing. So first of all, is the room got too many people in it? Has there been an incident, or has there been a COVID-19 potential person in that region for in the last hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 5 hours? You know, so again, using this ability to take analytical information and then use it to inform and keep everybody on top of things. Now, the other thing that we wanted to talk about, you know, in this was what is the next step? What can we do from a perspective of working with artificial intelligence and creating an environment which is sort of intuitive and able to do its own thing. So some of the examples we wanted to show you before we kind of wrap up our campfire story is we were looking at things like video to analytics, right? So repurposing of cameras that typically were there to do, you know, for security purposes. What they can do now is do things like people count. They can do virtual tripwires. So as we see the foot flow coming through certain areas, they already do things like hot spotting and flow dynamics, and all of these are related to you know, to things like COVID-19 social distancing or physical distancing. We also going to start to look at things like tomography. So you can see here that we've got this is Meraki's San Francisco kitchen. The camera is able to say that the people on the right are doing a great job, good job, green. The people in the middle have got yellow, so you know, they're not doing great, but you know, they're not necessarily you know, they're not bringing down the whole system. And then of course we've got the guy here having his coffee. Doesn't really, you know, he's like, hey, I'm young, I'm good, I'm fine. I like my coffee in the morning. And so, you know, it's not about isolating that person and calling them out. What it is about giving the overall building, the overall floor, or that room or that classroom a score, so that you can say, hey, things are going well here. Let's go focus on this area over here where everybody's just like, you know, everyone's partying and not taking you know, good social distancing rules. Now, of course, that's about dissuasion, right? That's about using analytics and artificial intelligence inside the network to come back, you know, with this video analytic and match that together and say, okay, we could be doing these things differently. For example, we could have a sign say, this floor is currently not doing its best, right? Or please, everybody in the kitchen, please, you know, take a step back, you know, or hey, we're going to stop everybody coming into this building. We're going to act like it's too many people in the building, even though it probably isn't at that point, you know. So there's things like that that we can really make decisions on. And again, the automation, the integration can go to an app level, right? It can go to digital signage, it can go to scheduling software, it can go to even learning management systems, you know, so making some adaptations because a building changes or a flow changes. We have a lot of conversations around temperature, about the ability to use infrared to see what people's temperatures are. It's kind of, it's not the most accurate. It's a little bit invasive. So one of the things that we've looked at is things like infrared, so kiosks for infrared. So you'd be able to enter a floor, enter a building by giving a direct reading, rather than, you know, so from a camera perspective of just kind of looking at everybody and going, hey, that guy over there's got a temperature. He could have just walked in off the quad during a, you know, 116-degree summer afternoon, you know. So so we are looking into that. Again, a lot of our experiences working in retail, public areas like airports, transportational centers, you know, we have a lot of experience of bringing in these analytics and making the right decisions. So again, we're hopefully helping the Arizona State University team kind of really look at this future for ASU and look at how to really make a difference. One of the other areas that you probably will be aware of is the hybrid campus model, this idea of spreading students, making their schedules between on-site and off-site. So, you know, maybe they're 2 days a week they're in, 3 days a week they're at home, or somewhere else where they can take the virtual class. There are also this idea of multiple simultaneous classes being run in Zoom, Slack, and of course, Cisco has its own platforms, WebEx and WebEx Teams. But the idea is when is the right platform being used, and how do you make sure it automates and connects to the scheduling software, the applications, the learning management system, and of course the mobile apps that students and faculty rely on to make sure they're in the right place and they're getting the right things done. Now, one of the things that we're able to do with analytics in the network and artificial intelligence in the network is actually bring that all together. So in the case here, you know, the professor is on his way to Smith Hall, and he can see that the building is in the green zone. So we're using that density information to say, hey, the density is good. We're in the green zone. We also are getting analytics from this correlation of the proximity and the density, and that's saying, hey, by the way, and also the video counts, the virtual tripwires, and maybe a trigger of the overall sort of scoring of that building. We can now say, hey, there are 0 safety incidents in that area, and for the last so many days. So now you can basically you'd be good. However, just to be aware, if you're going to have some breakouts, the conference rooms that you would normally use are off limits on floor 4 because there's been some sort of proximity issue between 11:30 and 2:30. Please keep an eye out on the digital signage. And by the way, you can call us at any time, right? So here we have the sort of kind of roll up of what we're trying to get to, which is taking all that network and wireless data, but natively at source, applying those correlations so that the artificial intelligence starts right there. And that way, when it gets to the central unit, the central information, you're able to then create this very high level conversation that's very fluid, and then all of your users and your campus participants, your constituents, are made to feel like, oh, you know, this campus is, or that we can feel safe that we're in the right place. Now, one of the examples of where we've done this previously and it's been very successful is inside of athletics and entertainment. You know, you're probably aware that this is probably more corporately driven from a sense of maximizing the average revenue per user inside of a stadium or inside of an events arena. But one of the things that we are looking at is the use of these technologies and these analytics and these artificial intelligence to just get the stadiums and events running, because it's a big part of campus life. Now, we're not necessarily there yet, but this is something potentially working on the simple running of a campus from an education or research perspective, and then moving into the how do we get, you know, everybody back to the stadiums to watch football or to take part in a musical event. And again, all the things that we've talked about, the rolling up of the data, the ability to create input and dashboards, means that you know, the IT team, the campus safety team, the you know, all of the student affairs and the operational people inside of each of the lines of business will be able to leverage this sort of information and make decisions, which ultimately means that a student who is choosing to come to the campus, come to Arizona State University, is getting the best environment. Another area which we're looking at is Cisco is one of the leading providers of the gaming industries for production, development, and also esports. And so esports is growing exponentially over the last 3 or 4 months. It was already growing, but it's growing even bigger because obviously it's a great virtual environment. You know, everybody can play from anywhere. So the idea of bringing these two worlds together, and again, using the ability to tie this digital and physical existence using analytics and artificial intelligence in the network layer, means that there might be some very clever things that we can do in terms of partial or virtual attendance to sporting events. So again, these are very interesting things. So just to give you, as I'm coming to the latter part of the session, I wanted to just give you some insights into what are the sort of analytics that would sort of, so location-based analytics is obviously something that's not new. Real-time location services is something that's been around for a long time. The key thing though is to be able to analyze people's behavior, look at location, but also preserve privacy. You know, this is not a case of 1984 Big Brother's watching you. It's essentially saying we can make decisions, we can adapt resources and infrastructure, we can trigger notifications, we can give early warnings, etc., to different things. And of course, you know, during this period of time with COVID-19, that's extremely powerful. So what we've done is we've essentially added native artificial intelligence and analytics into the actual switching environment, the wireless environment, and then tying it to all of the systems that are already existing inside of universities, like building controls, learning management system, security systems, and then using a very very open environment of APIs, being able to then, you know, integrate into and feed into platforms like Splunk, and you know, we've got partners like AppSpace, Involvio, Maze Maps. I mean, there's loads. Lone Rooftop. There's and of course the other thing is this idea of keeping everyone informed. So being able to integrate into the collaboration environments, the you know, all the communication services, but also into the dashboards. You know, the very thing that from a administrative point of view, you know, all the back office, sort of what keeps everything ticking along, whether it be the transport system, the you know, residence halls, the financial aid, the enrollment. Everybody is being impacted by the idea that this is an efficient campus running, and that people can go to class as much as possible within reason. From a hybrid perspective, the ability to flex between those spaces, all of those things are really critical. The future goals of what we're trying to do with working with ASU and leveraging this the artificial intelligence is also move to this idea of elasticity. You know, this idea of an elastic campus, this ability to create a digital, a physical and virtual existence in everything that's on the campus. This brings together all technologies, so it's not just from a networking point of view, but we're also collaboration, security, cloud, the ability to, you know, to do virtual desktops and create workstations and all this sort of stuff. Now, this is a kind of where everything comes together. You know, the ability to look at this and say there are faculty members who may be, you know, at risk, who want to be able to teach a class of 200 students from a remote location or from a separate building or a separate synchronous simultaneous broadcast method. You know, what is also the impact in terms of that class is over its subscription level? So if there's only 50 students allowed in that physical room because of the physical social distancing laws, you know, what happens to the other 10, the other 50, the other 100? Where do they go, and how do they know they need to get there? And also, where are they going, and is it safe for them to go there? And also, when they get there, how best is their experience? How good is their experience? Is it giving them the best possible experience, even though they're not physically in the face-to-face class? All of these things is what every university is trying to do right now, and the use of artificial intelligence, the use of this sort of consistent layer of capability is going to be high on the side of a key element to make this successful. Now we've got 15 minutes left. I'm going to open it to any questions, unless any of my colleagues, John or Tim, want to jump in with any points of order.
Nope. I think we open for questions.
Okay. I don't know if there's any questions come up on the chat, Abigail, but I wasn't really paying attention because I'm talking too much.
Hey, Neil, can you hear me okay?
Yes, hi there.
Your Twitter feed's going to be full with my tweets. I'm really impressed with everything you shared. I think my question is, what's the roadmap, right? Like
Right.
I can see it. I can see it working. This idea of proximity AI and this future aspiration that you have, but
Right.
it's and making the hybrid or high flex model, a safe one. But that future goal, what's the way to get there, right? So I can see it and I can see it operating, but the path there, where do you start? What are the milestones? That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, and it's a great point, Luke. I think from our perspective, when we've been looking at this as innovators, is you get a lot of no, that's not the right way to do things before people find out it's the right. So you baseline the thing that and John will back me up on this is baselining, right? We've got to start somewhere and we've got to kind of build up from that. And one of the things that many universities are going through right now is they don't have a baseline. No one has been through this before. So there isn't already a prescripted sort of approach to this. So we're kind of, when we're looking at things like bringing this great sort of like combination of all this information and data, so that it's not new to the universities. In fact, before COVID-19, universities had too much data. They couldn't. There's just too much to do with. The other thing is we have to be very cognitive to the fact that the data is already there, and that we shouldn't be trying to sell data back to a university that's already got the data. We've got to create technologies that make it very simple that you plug that data in and you get this output. What's really key though is trialing out those baselines. And so I've got high hopes that by the end of the fall there will be a lot of lessons learned, and some of the technologies that we've talked about are not necessarily that out of reach. It's more a case of the willingness to go through this next fall and kind of not have perfect, right? So does that make sense, Luke? Because I think what's important is we can do a lot of this stuff now, but we have to kind of go through this mechanism to get there, right? So I would say the next 2 to 3 years is extremely critical to how universities adapt to this, because this is we can't. There is no going back to the old way, right? It's the approach, especially from a hybrid university environment. This is the way forward, right? Now, do we spend our time focusing on preserving privacy and making sure that everybody feels safe, that they're personally, their information, their personal information, their location, their activities are not being constantly monitored, but that their actions on side of the network side is being used for good. Those are the two things that we're kind of focusing on. Everything else will come down to the university, focusing on the right areas to get the value. So I think there should be some very short-term wins and capabilities. So I wouldn't say, rather than what's the roadmap, I would say if there's a eagerness to be different and innovative, I think people like Arizona State University are very well capable of doing some very innovative things in amongst the fall. But it's going to be, does that make sense? It's going to be the fall is going to be the sort of the I hate to use the analogy about the vaccinations, right? But I'm going to use it because it's kind of relevant, right? Vaccinations, the accuracy of the success of a vaccination is probably already well understood, okay? Because I mean, our chief of innovation at Cisco worked with Arizona State Universities on a coronavirus vaccine and program 25 years ago. Okay, so vaccinations and their ability to fight the virus is actually probably quite quick. What they don't have is all that baseline data and all the side effects and the bigger picture, which is going to take two things. It's going to take a big sample of people using using that vaccine, and also a lot of research information that's being recrunched and re-expanded on, right? So we have to go through this, and unfortunately, that's not a great answer, is it? But it basically means that we're going to have to kind of build the ship as we sail. So roadmap wise, I'd love to give you a traditional answer, which is, yeah, we're hoping to get this out and running in the next 12 months. I would say we don't have that luxury, to get to the point where a hybrid environment with a very, very intuitive and context driven network environment that is helping a smooth running of the university campus is going to be from the start of the fall to the end of the fall is going to be an extremely high learning curve. The good news is Arizona State University got onto this extremely early, and so so their teams are extremely well prepared to start rolling out some very tried and tested stuff.
Yeah, I work in a very large community college district, and so we have a lot of career tech ed, right, which doesn't translate well to digital online or mobile or those other things. I mean, you can teach welding so many ways, right?
So, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this is very appealing. The only consideration I would ask for, right, and I'd be willing to be a partner in this, is that we document these actions that we took. I'm thinking very tactically, like I see the strategy. So my question was a very tactical one. I didn't ask it well. So I would just place that as a consideration, that I think there are a lot of career tech ed. And again, we're a very large community college district in San Antonio, Texas.
Right.
That would watch this, right, and can innovate on with it, or and learn with you. So
I definitely, you know what, Luke, I can definitely tell you that if I broke it down into some of the silos, there are things that you could be doing right now that will feel like that you're achieving some of that. So a good example, we were working with a research university where today their researchers workstation is a power station, right? It's a critical to the research program, right? So we put in a VDI environment that was, which is essentially meant that they could remotely come into that workstation and continue the research that was critical to that research program. Now, what we have to do is flip that and say every single welding student, right, needs to be able to to do one of two things: either come physically into the welding station to follow that learning program, but do it safely. And on the other side is the faculty member doesn't wants to be able to be physically as close to being in that room as possible and be able to look at the work, review it. So that's remote video control. That's the ability to annotate video screens so that they can give advice and make changes instead of physically being there. So there's things like that that we know we're able to do, but again, the time stasis we're in right now with COVID-19 is that we know we can get there. We just how quickly can we do it? So individually, there are lots of universities and community colleges and school districts that are doing individual things, but ultimately, we're trying to get them so that they can replicate that more so globally around the campus. So yeah, I think that's a great point though, Luke. You did answer it. You did ask it right. It's just it's not an easy answer.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks. So, any other questions? Anybody? I'm looking at the time. We've got like 5 minutes, so don't be shy. I'm gonna say, hey, Tim, John, any other sort of points that you think we should and give everybody any points of wisdom that we should leave this group with?
I think for those of you who enrolled with Arizona State University, you can be very proud of the Sun Devils for working with us early on in this. And so there's a lot of joint work we're doing to get ahead of the game, and we're just appreciative of the partnership.
Thank you, Tim. I want to open up to everybody that's attended today or anybody who's watching the recording. Obviously this was a Campfire story session, so we essentially wanted to just take you through, where we've been and where we're going in terms of working with ASU on getting technologies in place that have an intuitive capability at the network layer, but have an impact at the the high level, at the experience level for everybody. If there's an area that you feel like we've missed, or you feel like you'd like to know more about, just please contact us through the Learning Man program, and I think Abigail, we get our emails get connected and stuff like that. So we'll be happy, and again appreciate your attendance.